It's been a tough year for the Winnipeg Rifles. It obviously started even pre-pandemic, if you really want to get down to it, and that was their final game of the 2019 regular season, which was canceled due to inclement weather, and they weren't able to get to the game. Then obviously the beginning of 2020 brought COVID-19 and everything with that. No football on any level in Canada over that entire year, which was tough for so many people, both fans of the Canadian Football League and professional football, junior players, junior coaches, the fans, the sponsors, the supporters, university sport, obviously, as well, and amateur football at the community level. Obviously, a very tough year. But for the Rifles, they were going to go into 2020 with a lot of returning players and a lot of guys age 21, 22, 23, and looking to bring a lot of continuity, a lot of veteran leadership, and a high level of talent to their team on both sides of the football and in all three phases. 2019 was a real building year for them. It maybe didn't go as well as they had wanted, but they had a lot of high hopes going into the 2020 season. As is life, and as is the case with so many of these young men and athletes in the Canadian Junior Football League and here in the PFC, life goes on. And that pandemic year, from a football standpoint, it almost becomes secondary to what's really important in life. And they had a lot of their players and their veteran players decide to move on, find good employment. Obviously, with the situation in the job market and in the economy, if you have an opportunity to, begin your career or have a good paying job, you need to stick with it. So 2021 brought a ton of changeover. They had 145 athletes, I think even maybe a couple more, for training camp this year because of COVID restrictions here in Manitoba compared to Saskatchewan and Alberta. They weren't able to get out on the field as early as those other provinces and the rest of the teams in the PFC. That made it tough. And then when training camp began, imagine corralling 145 guys and then needing to do it 20 players at a time. COVID restrictions made everybody wait in their car until that group of 20 players was off the field in their cars. Then that next group of 20 could come out. So it was a very laborious and stringent training camp here in Winnipeg. But obviously safety was the number one concern. So coming into this year, they have talent. They have some good players along the defensive line, a strong quarterback play, and some returning receivers. But the offensive line rebuilt, and pretty much the entirety of the back end of the defense either rebuilt or very young players coming back and looking for bigger roles. So it's a year of change here in Winnipeg. And then it was obviously very tough. That first game of the season, absolutely rain-soaked. I think they had between 8 and 10 botched exchanges between snapper and quarterback, snapper and punter, snapper and holder in that game. So it was obviously very tough, unable to put any points up on the board in week one. And then having a rematch against the Regina Thunder in week two. That bye came at a great time for the Winnipeg Rifles to kind of reset, refocus, and look towards these games in Alberta now. We had to take a look at what's happening here at home and then look at what's happening in the other two provinces. We didn't have another team like Regina has Saskatoon, like Edmonton has their other team across town, and the Calgary Colts as well. So a lot of it was kind of, touching base a lot with the PFC board and Canadian Junior Football, what's happening in BC, what's happening in Ontario, and just trying to make sure that they were as prepared as possible. No excuses from the Winnipeg Rifles. I'm a member of their board, but as the kind of their media guy and their communications guy, asking them a lot of questions and trying to get inside of their mentality a little bit. Very impressed with the way they handled it. Because, I think what's really important here, Dave, is that we're playing football and they're happy to be playing football. And we're happy that we're able to travel and able to visit these other cities in the PFC, and that we're able to, have a good full regular season in 2021. It's amazing how absence can make the heart grow fonder. It goes well beyond sports, but boy, did it definitely leave an impression, I'm sure, across the entire country this year.